Larry Caputo, who used to be married to Long Island medium Theresa Caputo, is being divorced for the second time. Larry Caputo just divorced his second wife, Connie Talley, who had children. This event has sparked a lot of public discussion, especially since many people are blaming Theresa Caputo for the split. Some family members and lawyers say that Larry's relationship with Theresa is still going on and that this is the main reason for the dissolution of his second marriage. A lot of people think that Theresa may have had anything to do with Larry's decision. Theresa made it plain, though, that she didn't tell Larry anything and had nothing to do with his choice. But because of what people thought, things kept getting more complicated until Larry himself stepped out. He said firmly, "I am not divorcing Theresa. This is a choice I made for myself, and it has nothing to do with her." After this, the intensity of the debate went down a little. But the question still stands, does a previous relationship still have some effect on a new life? Larry Caputo and Theresa Caputo, the famous Long Island medium, had been divorced for years. It looked like they had split up on good terms. Larry moved west and finally married Connie Talley, a strong and independent lady with kids from a prior relationship. Theresa kept going on her spiritual journey by giving readings to strangers and comforting people who were sad. But the past, especially when it involves unresolved feelings, has a way of coming back. Larry Caputo stood on the balcony of his California home and looked out at the bright horizon. There were divorce papers from Connie on the table behind him that he hadn't touched. The house was so quiet that it was deafening. The kids were with their mother for the weekend, and Connie had moved out 2 weeks before. People in the press had heard about it, and whispers had already started to spread. Theresa must be involved, they whispered. Larry never really let her go. Theresa was sitting in her kitchen in New York, drinking her morning tea when she got the news. Larry Caputo files for divorce again. Is Theresa the reason? Her heart sunk. Not because of the headline. She was familiar to how the media twisted things, but because she knew Larry. She understood how hard it was for him to deal with feelings he didn't talk about. People started to pay more attention. Talk programs, social media, and gossip websites all hint at things, and some even accused people directly. People from both families started to speak up. One anonymous source added, "Larry never emotionally disconnected from Theresa." Another person said, "There was always a shadow of their bond over the second marriage." On news panels, legal experts argued about whether emotional cheating may be worse than physical cheating. And through it all, Theresa didn't say anything until she had to. She gently told a reporter, "I didn't tell Larry anything. I didn't have anything to do with his personal choice. I would never get in the way of Connie, Larry's new family, or anyone else." But the quiet didn't stop. On a cool night, Larry stepped out onto his porch and saw reporters waiting across the street. He gently called out to them, "Do you want a statement? You'll get one." He stood in front of their flashing cameras, calm and determined. "I'm not going to divorce Theresa. We have already done it, and it is over. I made the choice to end my marriage to Connie for personal reasons. There is no connection to Theresa Caputo.
She didn't have an effect on me."
This isn't a ghost from the past coming back to haunt us. It's about compatibility, growth, and progress. He was telling the truth. Maybe too truthful. Even while the headlines got softer and people lost interest, people close to Larry and Theresa noticed something strange. They were chatting more often. Short check-ins turned into extensive talks. Their voices became nostalgic. They would talk about the good old days, laugh about their kids' childhoods, and even have quiet moments that felt like home. It wasn't a love story. It wasn't intended, but that was something. During a long phone call one night, Theresa muttered, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't grown apart?" Larry stopped. "I do, but we did get off track. And sometimes that's how the universe makes things easier." Months went by. Theresa went back to her show, where she met fresh spirits and healed shattered hearts. Larry worked on putting his life back together by spending time with Connie's kids, who still thought of him as Pops. They didn't get back together romantically, but they didn't lose their spiritual connection either. There was no scandal or secret love in their story. It was about how complicated the human heart is, how love doesn't always go away, how relationships persist after divorce, and how healing isn't always easy. And people all throughout the world inquired, does an old relationship still cast a shadow? Larry and Theresa didn't bother to answer. They went on with their lives, letting the past softly reverberate in their hearts, but never letting it shape their future. But Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, walked into an old vinyl record store in a quiet part of Sayville, New York, on a rainy Thursday afternoon. It was between a laundromat and a barber shop. The sign above said, Dave's Records. She hadn't planned to stop there because she had a lot of readings that day, but something had pulled her in. A force. A voice nearly said, go inside. As soon as she walked in, the air was filled with the musty but familiar smell of old paper and vinyl. There was an ancient turntable in the corner that played classic rock music gently. A young man in his late 20s was standing behind the counter, fixing the album sleeves on a wall rack. He looked up, and his face lit up with recognition. Wait, you're Theresa Caputo, he continued, both amazed and shocked. Theresa grinned. You're guilty. Hey, I'm Jessie. This store belonged to my dad. Record Store Dave was what everyone called him. His voice broke a little. 3 months ago, he died. A heart attack. This place meant everything to him. Theresa stopped. She felt her heart race, a feeling she was all too familiar with. Spirit was nearby. You know, Jessie, she replied slowly. Sometimes when a ghost is that devoted to a location, they don't just depart. They stick around, especially if they're worried about someone. Jessie nodded, and his eyes filled with tears. I haven't been able to get into his office. It's like he's still here looking at me. Theresa cocked her head, and her eyes got softer. Is it okay if I sit with you for a while? He took her to a tiny area with chairs near the jazz section. When she sat down, her voice became quite quiet. Your dad is already chatting to me. He is showing me this song by Miles Davis called Kind of Blue. He says it was the first jazz CD he ever played here. Jessie's jaw dropped. Every year on opening day, he played that. It was something he always did. Theresa went on, her voice full of astonishment. He says you haven't played it since he died. Jessie said, no. I couldn't. It hurt too much. He wants you to play it. He thinks the store needs music again, and not just any sound, but his music. And he wants you to know that he's happy. You keep the spirit of this town alive. Jessie stood up, stepped behind the counter, and took the same album out of a locked display case. Tears flowed down his face. He put the vinyl on the turntable and dropped the needle with shaking hands. That first trumpet line filled the store with a sad, silky sound. All of a sudden, Theresa gasped. He's here, she said in a low voice. Right behind you. He has worn a faded Rolling Stones t-shirt and is waving at you. Jessie spun around, almost without thinking, but he didn't see anything. Theresa smiled, even though she was crying. He says, tell my boy this place is ours now. He responds, not just mine. He also tells you to look in the back of the old speakers. There is something taped there. Jessie hurried to the back room and came back a few minutes later with an envelope that said, for Jessie, when you're ready. There was a note from his dad inside. Words of love, encouragement, and advice. And at the bottom, there is a message that says, play Kind of Blue. You'll know I'm there. The reading was done, but the healing was only starting. Jessie held Theresa close. Thanks. I felt like I got to chat to him again. She smiled, as she often did when she thought about how special these times were. She answered, that's what I do. I just listen. The rain had stopped by the time Theresa exited the store. The sky was opening apart a little, like pain slowly giving way to brightness. But it was a clear fall afternoon in Oyster Bay when 32-year-old Melissa Romano stepped into Theresa Caputo's small reading room, which was full of activity. She was unsure, holding on to an old, fading picture of her parents, Angela and Marco Romano, smiling. Melissa mumbled to herself, I don't even know why I'm here, as she played with the ring on her left hand. It had been years since she had talked about her grief. Not completely. Not since the crash. Theresa Caputo walked into the room in her characteristic heels and with a big smile on her face. But as soon as she saw Melissa, her tone changed. She spoke before she even sat down. Theresa responded, "Oh, honey," in a soft but stern voice. "You feel like you lost both your mother and father in one heartbeat, don't you?" Melissa's eyes got bigger. Her lips shook. No one had ever put it that way, but that's how it felt. Angela and Marco Romano were high school sweethearts who had been married for more than 40 years. People in their New Jersey neighborhood knew them for their humor, love, and walks together every night. It was winter, and they were coming home from their favorite Italian restaurant when a truck slid on black ice and hit their automobile.
Angela died right away.
Marco's body survived, but the guy Melissa knew as her strong, caring father never came back emotionally. He stopped talking, eating right, and eventually physicians concluded he had grief-induced trauma. He died 6 months later, and even though the medical report said stroke, Melissa knew he died of a broken heart. "I don't know if I ever really grieved either of them," Melissa replied, her voice quivering. "That night, it felt like I lost both of them. Even though Dad officially lived a little longer." Theresa shut her eyes. "Someone is showing me a necklace. Is it your mother's?" Melissa took it out from under her sweater. Angela's favorite was a gold pendant with a little ruby heart on it. She responds, "I never left you, and neither did your father. We clutched each other's souls as we left. We didn't want to leave you behind, but every crimson leaf you see is a sign that we're with you." Melissa started to cry. She had never told anyone, but every fall, when the crimson leaves started to fall, she would experience a weird warmth in her heart. She assumed it was all in her head. Theresa went on, her voice shaking a little. "Your dad, he said he tried to stay strong. He did it for you. But every morning without her felt like I was going to die." Melissa nodded and cried. That's how it felt to watch him fade away. "They're showing me a garden?" Theresa asked. Melissa dried her eyes. "Dad made a modest rose garden for Mom in the backyard.
I've kept it going.
Even though I've moved, I grabbed some cuttings and started over." "They know," Theresa said with a smile. "Your mom says that every time you water it, she feels like you're still holding her hand. And what about your dad? He says that your strength gave him serenity." Something had changed inside Melissa when she went out into the sunny sunshine. Her sadness had been frozen for years, locked away by guilt and bewilderment. But now she knew something deep down. Her parents hadn't left her alone in the world. Their love was still there, in her memories, in the breeze, in the garden, and in her heart. She mumbled, "I didn't lose you," as she stared up at the sky. "You just got closer to my heart." Melissa smiled through her tears as a scarlet leaf flew by her. But Angie was a young woman from a little hamlet on Long Island. In both her real life and her dreams, she had always been a bit of a dreamer. Angie had been having bizarre and vivid nightmares for weeks. They seemed more like messages than random pictures that sprang into her head at night. Every morning, she would wake up feeling confused and uneasy, as if the dreams were trying to tell her something vital. Angie dreamed one night that an old woman was standing by a riverbed. The woman had nice eyes and wore a long white dress, but her face was just too blurry to see clearly. She gave out a small silver locket and said in a low voice, "Find the light within." Angie woke up with a jolt, her heart racing. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it wasn't just a dream. Angie was confused and eager for answers, so she told her best friend. Her friend told her to contact Theresa Caputo, the famed Long Island medium who is known for talking to ghosts and helping people understand messages from the other side. Angie didn't believe it, but she thought she had nothing to lose. The next day, Angie sat uncomfortably in Theresa's beautiful living room, which was full of photos, candles, and aromas that made her feel better. Theresa smiled warmly as Angie told her about the dreams that kept coming back. Theresa remarked softly, "Dreams can be strong ways for spirits to talk to us. They use symbols and feelings to help us, especially when something needs to be done right away or isn't clear." Theresa shut her eyes and took a big breath. She opened her eyes after a moment and looked straight at Angie. Theresa said, I feel a spirit trying to reach you, like a grandmother or an older female relative. The silver locket is a link to something valuable that you may have forgotten or lost. Find the light within suggests that you should look deep inside yourself for strength, love, and understanding. Angie's heart was touched by Theresa's remarks. She started to cry as memories came rushing back. Her beloved grandmother had given her a silver locket when she was a youngster, but it had been lost in a move years ago. Theresa went on, "You are not alone. Your grandmother is watching over you and telling you to remember who you are, trust your gut, and keep hope alive even when things are hard." Angie looked through her old things for the next few days and finally found the silver locket she had been looking for in a box she had forgotten about. She felt a sense of tranquility rush over her as she held it close. Angie not only understood her ambitions better because of Theresa's advice, but she also reconnected with her family, healed old scars, and embraced her own inner light. Angie came back to Theresa months later, and she was happier than ever. Angie said, "My dreams haven't stopped, but now she knows they're a way to connect with the people she loves and remind her that she's never really alone." Theresa hugged Angie and remarked, "That's the magic of messages from the other side. Love is always the language, even though they appear in numerous forms." But Theresa Caputo was backstage, and her heart was beating faster than usual. Tonight was a special night for her loyal fans. She would read live and communicate with spirits to send messages of love and hope. But tonight, her customary calm was mixed with a strong, personal feeling. For years, Theresa told stories about people she didn't know, connecting families with loved ones who had died. But tonight, the message wasn't for someone she didn't know. It was for her, and it was about her brother Michael, who she loved more than anyone else. Michael was more than just Theresa's brother. He was her idol, her best friend from childhood, and her guardian. The two had always been best friends since they were kids in a little suburb on Long Island. Michael was always there for Theresa, from riding bikes around the streets to exchanging secrets late at night. But Michael's life hadn't been easy. 10 years ago, he had a terrible accident at work that left him bedridden and struggling for his life. Theresa had been sitting by his hospital bed for months, holding his hand and talking to him through tears and prayers. The doctors stated the chances were small, but Michael's will to fight was stronger than anyone thought. Michael gripped Theresa's hand lightly and whispered, "Keep going, Theresa," on a cool fall night after weeks of silence. "You are the light in my life." That moment changed everything. Theresa understood that her gift was not just about bringing people together with spirits, but also about respecting the love that kept families together, even when things were at their worst. As she came onto the stage tonight, she could feel Michael's presence with her. He wasn't there in person, but as a spirit who had always been there for her. "Good evening, everyone," Theresa said, her voice firm but friendly. "I want to share something very personal with you tonight. A lot of you know me as someone who talks to spirits and brings messages from the other side. But sometimes, the people who are still with us in spirit and heart send the strongest signals." She stopped and looked at the crowd. "My brother Michael is my hero. Not simply because he lived through everything, but also because he showed me what real love and courage are." Tears shone in Theresa's eyes. "When he was in the hospital, he gave me the strength to go on. He taught me that hope can shine through even when life seems unfair and terrible." She took a deep breath and felt the vibe in the room change. "Tonight, I can feel Michael with me more than ever. I think we all have someone like that in our life, a hero who raises us up even when they're not here in person." Theresa's vision suddenly got a little blurry as her gift took over. She closed her eyes and used her senses to feel about. "I can feel a very strong presence," she added. "It's a man who wants you to know how proud he is of you. He's saying, 'I'm still here and watching over you.'" The crowd quieted down, feeling the heaviness of the moment. Theresa went on, "Michael wants me to tell you all that love never dies. Our ties will last forever. Heroes live on, not just in stories, but also in our hearts and souls." Theresa got off the stage and went into the silent backstage room after the reading. She pulled a small picture of Michael out of her pocket. It was a picture of him smiling, full of life and happy. She murmured, "I miss you, brother. But I know you're always with me." For Theresa Caputo, tonight's reading was more than just a show. It was a memorial to her brother, who had given her the strength to become who she was. And with her gift, she shared that strength with the world, reminding everyone that every reading has a story of love, strength, and unbreakable relationships. But Emily was just 16 years old. She was smart, full of life, and adored by her family. She always had a strong bond with her mother Lisa and younger brother Jake because she grew up in a small community on Long Island. But what made Emily special was her amazing gift. She could occasionally sense things that other people couldn't, like a whisper from beyond that no one else believed. She kept her gift a secret because she was afraid of what people would think of her until one day a tragedy changed everything. Emily got really sick on a rainy fall night. The physicians did everything they could, but her health got worse very quickly. On the night she died, she was in her hospital bed, surrounded by machinery and the quiet cries of her family. But at the end, Emily's head was clear and her heart was heavy with a message she had to give. She didn't want to leave yet. She wanted to make sure her family knew why she was departing. Lisa was still grieving days after Emily's death and couldn't find calm. She was feeling hopeless one night when she turned on the TV and watched Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, talking on a show. Lisa felt a sudden urge and called Theresa for a private reading. Theresa closed her eyes and took deep breaths at their first meeting. Her face relaxed as she connected with the spirit realm. Then she added, "Emily is here. She wants you to know that she's fine." But she left behind something very important, a duty she took on herself. Lisa couldn't believe it. Theresa said that Emily had felt a gloomy shade over her family, which was a private burden she chose to carry alone. Theresa replied softly, "She was responsible for her death. Not because I'm sad, but to keep you all safe." Lisa's heart sank when Theresa talked about how Emily was feeling inside. The teen had been quietly battling a deadly disease, but she also thought she had to give up her life to protect her family from a hidden threat that had been haunting them for generations. Theresa's readings were clearer as the days went by. Emily's presence was still there, trying to talk to Jake and Lisa, helping them through their suffering and giving them signals that she was at peace. Lisa found a note in Emily's favorite book one night. It was a note that Emily must have written before she died. It said, "Mom, I'm sorry I had to leave, but I had to take this weight off your shoulders. Don't be sad. I'm free now. Take care of each other, and remember that love is stronger than everything else." The family started to get better with Theresa's care. Lisa and Jake took comfort in Emily's comments and learned to deal with the bittersweet fact that their daughter chose to die to protect them. The experience brought them closer together and made them more aware of the world around them that they couldn't see. Even though Emily was gone, her love and sacrifice became a guiding light for them. It reminded them every day that sometimes the most important thing a teenager can do is love and protect someone, even after they die. Hello and welcome to my channel, lovely viewers. My name is Mina, and I hope your day is going well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you appreciate the video.